As Julia said, I'm Patrizia Di Mauro, Secretary General of UNIEP, the International Association for Painting Contractors in the construction sector. The Today conference foresees two sessions, as you saw in the agenda. The first session is dedicated to skills needs in Europe and how the EU institutions, social partners, representatives of employers are dealing with this matter, and which also represents a major concern for our sector, the painting sector. The second session will examine more in depth the project, EUROPA-MEISTER project's results, and also focus on the benefits for the professionals of the sector. So I'm really glad to be accompanied by so impressive speakers that I want to thank again to intervene today. We have many participants to this conference, registered to this conference. As we said, all have the possibility then to interact with the speakers through the questions and answers function. So all the questions will be addressed to the speakers during the Q&A and a part before closing the sessions. So let's start now our conference and session one. First of all, I will give the floor to Mr. Wagner, Project Coordinator and Director of HTL Badel School, for opening the conference and giving us an introduction to the project. Please, Mr. Wagner, you have the floor.
Thank you very much. Good morning to all. Ladies and gentlemen of the European Parliament and the European Commission, President of SME United and representative of the EU Economic and Social Community. Dear guests and interested participants of today's event, dear project partners, I would like to address my greetings to all of you. I'm extremely pleased that this great day for our joint project has come. We have been working for almost 3 years on our project EUROPA-MEISTER for the craft, which we developed within the Erasmus Plus program funded by the European Union. Today's project event is a milestone for our work. It serves as a presentation of our project in an appropriate framework and as an important dissemination occasion for all project partners among different European countries. Our event today was originally planned as a large physical gathering of participants in Brussels. Due to the coronavirus pandemic, the activities of our project have been significantly influenced. Thus, the event has been rescheduled in a different way as a video conference by our project partner UNIEP, with a lot of creativity and commitment. With this online event, we will try to bring you in the same atmosphere of a normal face-to-face conference, giving you the same interesting information with the participant of external speakers within the first session and project partners in the second one. First of all, I would like to give our guests some basic information about the project. A brief overview of the most important data of our project should provide an understanding of the single contents and steps of our Erasmus Plus project. Our ambitious Erasmus Plus Tier 2 strategic partnership projected its title EUROPA-MEISTER towards a European quality seal for the craft sector. Project start was in October 2017, and the project end will be in August 2020. The partners, project coordinator and project participant from Austria, HTL Badel Painting School Leesdorf, and its non-profit association for the craft of painting. Project partner from Germany, SPG Dresden, Saxon Educational Society of Environmental Protection and Chemical Professions, Dresden. Project partner from Luxembourg, UNIEP, International Union of Painting Contractors. Project partner from Norway, NTI, M, Multilateral Monitoring and Management. Project partner from Slovenia, OPZS, Craft Business Association of Slovenia. A project partner from Belgium, Confederation Construction Finishing. And finally, another partner from Austria, Lower Austrian Land Guild of Painters and Decorators. Ladies and gentlemen, what is the basic idea of the project? A European Champion Certificate for the craft, which proves the competences and skills of the Master of Craftsmanship in painting and coating technology. At level 6 in the European Quality Framework is a certification as a seal of approval. The European Master Letter for the painting trade will be awarded by the European Umbrella Organization, UNIEP, and thus established as a seal of quality. What were the sub-objectives and stages to achieve the goals in our project? 5 intellectual outputs, so-called IOs, have been defined. I will present this in a short form now. IO1, description of a competence profile for the painting trade at level 6 of the European Qualification Framework in the form of a base matrix. IO2, creation of a multilingual competence profile in the skills bank database in accordance with EasyRed and EQF criteria. IO3, description of procedures or guidelines for the cooperation of European master schools. IO4, development of an e-learning course system and supported by a test run called EUROPA-MEISTER with selected master students. Finally, IO5, achievement of objectives with the European Meisterbrief, which is awarded and recognized by UNIEP. What are the next goals of our work? It's important to complete our e-learning course system first and to concentrate the many technical contents areas, developing it as a basic instrument for further work after the official end of the project for UNIEP and its award for the European champion. The language gap between the partners has been a big challenge within the project. Mobility and the linguistic competence of the young European masters will be important prerequisites for future developments. There are still many ways to support the path to Europameister of the crafts in its training precursors. That is why another major Erasmus Plus project has already been launched. Under the Erasmus Plus sector Skills Alliance projects, the Painting Skills Academy will be carried out in the next few years. The project consortium of our project looks with great expectation towards the first certifications, which will guarantee the project's sustainability. What assessments can be formulated at this time? For the painter's trade, the certification of the European Master of Crafts represents a major step into the future of the traditional profession. For the young Europameister is a visible confirmation of the high competence they achieved during their professional activities. From a European perspective, this Erasmus project shows that the craft sector knows no borders and that the common traits and good practices can only be gathered and expressed at European level. Ladies and gentlemen, I hope you will receive more information about our project during today's event. In any case, it's important for us to point out with this event the importance of a recognized European Master's training at level 6 of the EQF. Perhaps this Erasmus Plus project will also set an example for other master training courses in Europe for other sectors, which I would be very pleased to see. As project coordinator, I would like to take this opportunity to thank all participating partners of their intensive work and commitment to the project work so far. And I hope that together we will also successfully complete the latest final set of our project and thus ensure its desired sustainability. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you very much, Mr. Wagner. You mentioned in your intervention the importance of a high qualification for craft in the sector and how EUROPA-MEISTER wants to contribute to improve competencies and skills in a European dimension. So this will play a very important role also for the employability of young people. So I think we'll come back later on this important element during our conference. So now I would like to give the floor to Mr. Haider, member of the European Parliament from Austria, who kindly accepted to intervene in support of our project, asking if its objective is in line with the priorities of the Committee on Culture and Education for next years. Please, Mr. Haider, you have the floor.
Thank you, dear EUROPA-MEISTER. Good morning. I'm in Brussels in my office in the 14th floor of the European Parliament. And I'm very proud and honored that I can be part of your live event. And I have to say, when I heard for the first time of the title of the project, EUROPA-MEISTER, I was affected and very interested in it. Because of course, EUROPA-MEISTER could also mean European champion. And on the other hand, the education to a Meister, to this certificate is a way of education I know very well from Austria, where I'm coming from. So I want to congratulate all the EUROPA-MEISTER, and I want to thank those who contributed to this project and this ambitious initiative of truly European dimension. So in line with Article 14 of the Charter of Fundamental Rights of the European Union, education is a fundamental right and everyone has to have access to vocational and continuing training. Everyone has the right to a quality, accessible, affordable and inclusive education, training and lifelong learning in view of their integral personal development and in order to maintain and acquire skills that enable them to develop to the fullest potential personally and professionally, to participate fully in society and successfully manage the transition into the labor market. It is only through access to education, inspired to our shared values that form the basis of our common European identity, that we can develop both critical thinking and openness, as well as social well-being, inclusion and cohesion. Education systems of all member states must offer equal educational opportunities everywhere in order to ensure equal living conditions. And today, with the pandemic, Europe goes through one of the most difficult moments in its existence. And I'm very sorry that we are here in a video conference and that we cannot meet personally. So I'm looking forward on an occasion where we really could meet and talk face to face. Inequalities in the education systems have been exacerbated. The political response to the COVID-19 crisis must be effective and education must be a priority. We need to create equal opportunities by giving all citizens access to quality education. And for me, as a member of the Parliament and of the Commission, which is also responsible for education, it is completely unacceptable and short-sighted to starve out the long-term EU budget by reducing the budget allocations for the Erasmus Plus program, the most important EU funding scheme for education, training, youth, and sports. No other program is so effective and also well known, and it works with a comparatively tight budget. In particular, the vocational training division in the Erasmus Plus program must be adequately funded, since it's necessary basis to be able to offer a uniform European level of training. In her inaugural speech in June 2019, a year ago, Commission President Ursula von der Leyen promised to support the European Parliament in its call for tripling the Erasmus Plus budget. Compared with what the Commission originally planned for Erasmus Plus in May 2018, we are now dealing with a funding decrease of about 7%, not only in Erasmus Plus, but also in the Creative Europe program, Creative Culture program. We are thus further away from tripling the Erasmus Plus budget than ever before. But Erasmus Plus has to be widened. More young people, as well as more Europeans of all ages and generations, should have the opportunity to participate and to profit from the Erasmus Plus program. We cannot have a next generation EU, but actually investing in the next generation. So I can assure you all that the CULT committee in the European Parliament stands for the recognition of vocational education and training. We call for promoting decisively vocational education and training, and therefore it needs to invest more and much more in this area. The successful completion of the initial VAT vocational education and training education must be recognized and valorized in the same way as the completion of upper secondary school. It is particularly important to me that the attractiveness and visibility is supported and promoted as the first choice. In cooperation with schools, key partners active on the ground, and business, early school leavers should receive guidance and support to consider a vocational education and training pathway with the possibility to continue studying afterwards if they wish. The European qualification framework has to be promoted, and its use has to be facilitated across the European Union in order to become a widely accepted tool for recognition to increase substantially mobility in the European educational area. In view of increasing use of digital education, quality assurance of digital education offers and recognition of learning outcomes needs to be further developed across all EU member states. I therefore appeal to the member states to put in place mechanisms for the automatic mutual recognition of diplomas at all levels of education and of learning periods abroad. While education remains nationally focused, the challenges the European education system have to confront now and over the coming years, such as digitalization, do not know borders. Therefore, we should also promote a long-term effective approach in which an educated worker is at the center of the digital revolution, and an education system which enables and further develops protections for all workers in a new digital labor market. Education system must be modernized across the Union using the EU budget to support specific national initiatives on digital education, training, upskilling and reskilling of workers, with particular attention to the most vulnerable, especially ensuring necessary infrastructure. Craftsmanship has a long and successful tradition in Europe. Austria and Germany, like many other countries with strong apprenticeship system, has a series of professional exams designed to expand the professional skills of craftspeople. The Master Craftsman is in Austria the highest professional qualification in crafts and a state-approved grade by the Chamber of Commerce. The Master's Craftsman examination, the Meisterbrief, entitles and prepares the Meister for running their own businesses and training apprentices. This dual model is so successful because it includes theoretical and practical training in the craft sector, as well as commercial and legal training. The Austrian, let me say, success story of the certification of Master Craftsmen can make a significant contribution to the standardization of qualifications in the EU. The European institution can help ensure that the respective national forms of training in the member states form a good base for uniform masterly training. I can therefore express my fullest support to the goals of the EUROPA-MEISTER project. In particular, the demand for European Meisterbrief, a certificate, makes a significant contribution to the mobility of high qualified craftsmen. As a result, I'm convinced that these measures will help to counteract the shortage of skilled workers in our countries, and it's a contribution close to the needs of the labor market. So congratulations again, and thank you for all your efforts, and keep on working that EUROPA-MEISTER will go on as a success story. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Haider, for supporting so strongly our project. Let's turn now a bit the attention on the vocational education and training and the recommendation that the recommendation proposal published last week. The European Commission states that vocational education training accounts for about half of the upper secondary graduates, and that employment rates of graduates from VETs was gradually increasing from 73.7% in 2009 to 79.5% in 2019. So VETs has proven to play an essential role in supporting youth employment and to increase employability. So let's talk about that with Mr. Magyar, President of SMEs United, in order to hear your opinion, the opinion of the European social partner representing SMEs and craft in Europe. Please, Mr. Magyar, you have the floor.
Okay, thank you very much. Well, first I want to thank UNIEP, President Schulz, Secretary General Patricia Di Moro, and all the consortium's partners for inviting SME United at your final conference. As you may know, SME United is the European umbrella organization for crafts and SMEs in Europe, with 65 members organizations from over 30 countries. It includes national cross-sectoral federations and European SME branch organizations like UNIEP. It speaks on behalf of 24 million European SMEs, representing almost 100 million workers and employees. And these SMEs depend essentially on well-qualified employees to thrive in a more and more challenging environment. Crafts and SMEs contribute to a large extent to initial and continuous vocational education and training. VET is a key pillar for the development and the competitiveness of crafts and SMEs. Promoting and developing higher VET and investing in digital and green skills are a must. This is the best way to get the skills and competences requested by our entrepreneurs. And UNIEP initiative aiming to create a European Meisterbrief is a clear move towards this. This is the best approach to make your painter and decorator profession more attractive to young people. They need to be proud of their VET qualification and their Meister diploma. Naturally, SME United supports your consortium in their commitment to improve painter skills in Europe. Creating this profile with the right elements of the know-how, skills, and competences is a very ambitious task, and you did it. Defining a multilingual competency profile for painters and decorators is a great example of the added value of European cooperation in sectoral skills development. It should be further promoted. Even more, it should be considered as a very good practice and we feel the approach could be duplicated in other sectors. The COVID-19 pandemic has profoundly disrupted the smooth functioning of SMEs and crafts. Cash flow difficulties, solvency problems, drop in turnover have led companies unwillingly to lay off their employees or postpone hiring. SME United is of the opinion that qualification requirements are the basis for the economic recovery and future growth. This is why SME United welcomed the new Commission's package on skills. So I have been asked to give some SME United reflections on this new European skills agenda and on the various policies and instruments proposed by the European Commission to address the skills shortages and mismatches. As a matter of fact, almost 80%, I repeat, 80% of firms experience a lack of skilled staff as an obstacle to their investments. So now let me share some comments on each of the 5 building blocks of this new agenda. First block, the Commission calls for a Pact for Skills to be presented during the European Vocational Skills Week in November in Berlin. The Pact aims at creating large-scale partnerships among public and private stakeholders. SMEs are specifically mentioned as key actors of these partnerships. SME United recommends that SME organizations, skilled crafts chambers, and social partners, including at sectoral level, be involved in the design and delivery of qualifications. This is the only way to have a demand-led system which is well adapted to employers and job seekers' expectations. The second point is in the second building block of the skills agenda. The European Commission puts forward the skills to job approach. SME United promotes this approach as, for many years, small and medium enterprises have been experiencing a persistent lack of skilled staff, but also a general lack of basic skills. Therefore, SME United asks for modernization of the education and training systems in order, first, to equip youngsters with robust basic skills, and second, to rapidly reply to the changing needs of the labor market. This success of this second building block relies on future-proof VT, apprenticeship, and strong entrepreneurial skills. Apprenticeship is the game changer to address the skills shortages in small and medium enterprises. At SME United, we are convinced that apprenticeship benefit both employers and learners. Therefore, we continue advocating for the development of such schemes in Europe. Becoming an apprentice enables young people to gain their first professional experience, to learn on the job, both on the technical and the human dimensions. This type of learning is priceless and can only be achieved with hands-on work experiences. I must say that from what our members tell us, we know that many small enterprises are not always ready to propose apprenticeship placements. And this might even become more difficult with the COVID crisis. With this in mind, we motivated the European Commission to provide financial support for SMEs that offer apprenticeships, and we got it as part of the 5 building blocks. I move now to the third building block, and in this third building block, the European Commission puts forward some tools empowering individuals to build their skills throughout their lives. Social partners should be actively involved. Upskilling and reskilling can be achieved in different ways. Individual learnings accounts should not be imposed as the only valuable solution for all member states. As European social partner, SME United will also contribute to the development of micro-credentials in the next month to ensure that they are clearly defined and designed to improve the recognition of skills acquired in work. In the fourth building block, that's point 4, the Commission sets 4 ambitious targets on participation in continuous training in terms of age category and percentage. But SME United stresses that SMEs still face specific challenges such as the cost of training, the lack of an adequate training offer tailor-made for each learner, the difficulty to deliver training during the working time, the difficulties to motivate workers, and the lack of the necessary resources and support to design a professional development and training plan. Entrepreneurs should also benefit from the relevant training supply for themselves, taking into account the very rapid developments in new technology and digitalization. In the fifth and final building block of the new skills agenda, the Commission identifies all financial instruments to foster investment in skills in the next 5 years through Next Generation EU and the next multi-annual financial framework. SME United particularly welcomes the possibility to give SMEs direct subsidies to hire apprentices. This kind of support will definitely stabilize and increase the supply of quality and effective apprenticeships. Ladies and gentlemen, let me conclude by saying that we are definitely at a turning point in our economy. Solid skills will make the difference in our future. The new skills agenda calls for very ambitious actions and policies, and we will have to work together to reach these targets. And for that, you may and you can count on SME United full commitment. Once again, I would like to congratulate all of you for your project. You made a step forward on quality assurance in the painting profession. As I said, I do hope that such a successful initiative will be scaled up in other sectors. I wish you all the best for the concrete implementation of the European Meisterbrief, and we will be happy to promote it as a good practice in Europe. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Major, for this important, addressed, speech for the future of our enterprises. And I mean, you mentioned a lot of important elements, and not last, a good support in terms of resources, economic resources for our entrepreneurs. Who are the first, giving training to the young apprentices. So we are talking. We also have to remind that we are talking about really small enterprises, sometimes 3-4 persons unit enterprises. So to give training to young people is really a cost. I mean, a cost not only economic but also in terms of time. So, and we have to preserve that. So if we want also to strive to boost mobility of these persons and qualified young people, we really have to count on this on this kind of subsidies or support. So now we go to another interesting point of view. Mrs. Badalova, who represents at the same time entrepreneurs, so businesses in Business Europe, and at the same time the employers group in the Economic and Social Committee. So we just want to ask to you which are the priorities also in your for your group to contribute really for providing, I would say, labor markets with the right skills and enhance, as I said, mobility in Europe. Please, Mrs. Balova.
So, good morning. Is everything okay? Can you hear me and see me? Thank you very much. My name is Vladimíra Drbalova, and I am member of the European Economic and Social Committee. And in this mandate, I am one of the vice chairs of the employers group. And I am really very happy to be invited in this very well prepared meeting and project EUROPA-MEISTER. Because following the introduction of Mr. Wagner, I can see that your project is testing and developing all these European policies and strategy in the reality. Next slide, please, Julia. The European Economic and Social Committee is a consultative body to the other European institutions representing organized civil society. And in its advisory role, it is providing its opinions and explanatory reports and notes on the request of the European Parliament, Commission, or EU presidencies. The opinions are focused on new strategies or policies, legislative or non-legislative proposals of the Commission. Next, please. Next slide, please. And the next slide, please. Yes, this is my picture. These opinions are provided across the whole our committee. All political groups can contribute to our common work. You can see that we have 3 political groups: employers, workers, together social partners, and also the third one, Diversity Europe, representing different NGOs, also farmers, consumers, professions, academics, cooperatives. And as I already said, I am representing employers group, and we are not only representative of employers in our committee, but we are also cooperating with the whole European employers family, with SME United, with Business Europe, Eurochambers. Next slide, please. As an employers group, we have our own priorities, but of course in the line with the priorities of the whole committee. We set our priorities after the European Parliament election and changes in European institutions. It was before the Corona crisis, but we have recognized that our priorities are still valid, particularly for this recovery process. You can see that the architecture of our priorities is like a Greek temple based on the 4 pillars. And the skills development and skills are essential and playing important role across all these pillars. But I would like to stress particularly importance of skills for the further strong economic and particularly industrial basis in the future Europe. and for this transition to digital and green economy. Next slide, please, Julia. I picked up for you our priorities or key moments in the area of education, because a lack of labor force with the adequate skills is evident in several sectors, in many companies. So we are now focusing on not only on upskilling and reskilling of labor force, not only young people and for their transition from education to labor market, but particularly for adult worker. And it is also about mobility. It was already mentioned about mobility across borders for workers, students, researchers, and talents as such. And because we are representing employers and businesses, companies, for us is important new approach and modernization and higher attractiveness of vocational education and training, and particularly apprenticeship systems to attract more young people. And we are calling also for a higher number of graduates in STEAM, with STEAM competencies in STEAM areas. And from this reason, and it was already mentioned by my co-speaker, that we are happy that we have finally on the table this new package introduced by the Commission, Skills for Job. Because and the part of this package is also proposal for recommendation on vocational education and training. And this is very important. There are many good elements, this pact of for skills, and also focus on flexibility, quality, mobility, permeability. So these are elements we are as employers promoting. So next slide, please. Because these skills mismatches are the main concern for our companies. It is a new phenomenon, and practically in all country reports introduced by Commission and addressed to the member states, this new phenomenon, mismatches and labor shortages are mentioned. It was already said how many companies are affected by this new phenomenon. This is the reason why we as employers group encourage in 2018 development of a study focused particularly on a skills mismatch. And the philosophy behind was that how to maintain competitiveness of our companies in global conditions. It is important that the companies for successful providing of services and goods have to have access to adequately skilled labor force. This is the key for their future plans and competitiveness. And this study is identifying also consequences and effects of skills mismatches for our companies. It is no surprise, of course. It is about additional costs for employees training, lower competitiveness, slowdown of hiring of more workers, limitation in their expanding and development plans, slowdown of innovation, pressure of automation. So it was focused only on 6 member states, 6 countries, but the results are clear and evident. Next slide, please. Our committee is talking about skills in relation with labor market. We are cooperating as a committee on a regular basis with many relevant EU agencies, particularly with CEDEFOP and Eurofond and OSHA as well in Bilbao. Inviting their representatives to our hearings, meetings, conferences, and using all their facts and figures. Together with CEDEFOP, we are organizing so-called policy learning forum. We started already in 2018, and we are focusing particularly on adult education and also about work-based learning, validation and recognition of competencies, upskilling passes for adults. And this year, this forum was postponed because the corona pandemic for November, and it will be a good platform for exchange of experiences from different countries. Next slide, please, Julia. As I already said at the beginning of my intervention, our committee is providing also its opinions in different areas. And because skills, education, skills, competencies are always our key priority in our working plans and working programs. There are really many opinions focus on education and training and skills and competencies. So for your information and for demonstration, I have decided to inform you only about 4 of them. The first one was about future of work and skills. So it was about new orientation of education and training and lifelong learning. Also about strengthening of vocational education and training system, and also about the need for basic skills, digital and transversal skills as well. The second opinion was on the request of Bulgarian presidency about supportive education system to avoid skills mismatches. So it was about also our main concern about still remaining structure problems on labor markets due to the skills mismatches. The third opinion is on the request of Finnish presidency about new skills and social inclusions. So here we are, as a committee, are calling for comprehensive approach to education and training, and also for an increased allocation of EU funds to invest adequately to the reforms. And the last one was on the request of Croatia presidency. It is directly about this sustainable funding for lifelong learning and development of skills. All these opinions are, I think, highly relevant and fit to this today's meeting. Next slide, please. It is my last slide. It is about implication on COVID-19 on education, and I don't want to repeat what was already said in a different declaration and statements by the European Union as well by OECD, for example. I would like only to stress that even if the COVID-19 influence strongly the education generally, the main victim was vocational education and training and apprenticeship, because it is about learning directly at the workplace. And in case that the companies were closed, also this form of learning was strongly reduced. It's true that some companies wanted or strived to combine different tools, IT tools, and also, for example, some simulation of the workplace and some modules. It was not enough, but in some sectors, of course, there was no other option than to continue in this work-based learning. So it was there are results from survey made by the European Commission. How is that provision were being organized in face the COVID-19? And this survey is I recommend it to read some conclusions, because it is really good example how our companies are ready to adapt on a new education. But it was not only about victim, it was also about new challenges, because the companies now can prepare for the better for distance learning, particularly in combination with so-called short-term working schemes. So that's all from my part, and I thank you for invitation.
Thank you very much, Mrs. Derbalova. Very interesting contribution. For concluding this first session, we thought it might be useful to also enlarge the discussion to the really dimension of SMEs, the context of SMEs. So we asked Roman Horvat of the European Commission, which are the priorities of the Commission in particular for supporting small businesses in its dedicated new strategy. Can you tell us something about that, Roman, please?
Madame Di Mauro, thank you very much for inviting me to this very interesting meeting. I'm very pleased that I can be part of the panel. My name is Roman Horvat. I'm from European Commission working for DG GROW. DG GROW is DG Director General, which is dealing with SMEs, entrepreneurship, internal market, and industry. I'm working at the unit C1, which is dealing with circular economy and construction, and in particular, I am working with the topic of skills in construction. So let's say I listened with great interest to the previous speakers when they are really talking about the issue of skills in general. In this my capacity, I must say that I am following Europa Master project already for some time, and I must really say that I am really pleased by its achievements. Next slide, please. I should speak today about the EU SME strategy, which was adopted this March. This is my initial slide in which I would like to say or show how SMEs are important for European economy. They are backbone of European economy because they are providing, there's a lot of enterprises that are providing a lot of jobs, and they are also providing a lot of added value for European economy. Next slide, please. So it was one of the priorities of the current Commission to prepare and adopt a dedicated SME strategy, because let's say, as I said, there are already, the SMEs are backbone of the European economy. There are already some activities running from the past. Since 2008, we have our Small Business Act. And let's say they are really important for growth of, let's say, European economy, because they have some potential to innovate. You know, we have heard about various startups. If we would like to have some shining examples, maybe not from Europe, but also Microsoft on Apple, which are one of the biggest companies across the world, started as a small startups in a garage. Also, the SMEs are various, are bigger, smaller. So, and usually when they are smaller, they face some problems or challenges because they have limited resources to access the market. So we should support them, let's say, in their activities. And we might say that maybe not all SMEs are somehow innovate or will develop something striking, but they are very important for local economies, especially in some rural areas, because they are providing local employment and also supporting local economy. So their role is very important. Next slide, please. Here I would like to share two objectives of the EU SME strategy. First is to drive the transition to the new sustainable and digital economy. And second one is to make Europe most attractive place to start a business and expand it. As we see, let's say there is a really need to address those two issues because, let's say, our economy is developing also. The world is globalizing. We see that new companies, new technological leaders are, let's say, growing here and there. And definitely European Union would like that to be part of this process and, let's say, to offer good conditions to SMEs to start up and grow up, to scale up. Next slide, please. The European SME strategy has three components or three main pillars. First one is, let's say without any numbering, the first one is focusing on cutting red tape and tapping into markets. So it means to lower the burden for SMEs and improving their access to markets. Second one is access to finance. And third one is capacity building in the area of digitalization and sustainability. Next slide, please. When we are speaking about this capacity building regarding sustainability and digitalization, we see that there are some challenges which SMEs are facing, that don't offer enough green products, they are not always innovative enough, or let's say they are not able to cope successfully with new emerging digital technologies. They are often not, they don't have often sufficient education or training, often don't know what to do, so they need some advice and, let's say, some support. Next slide, please. So key actions in this pillar, let's say I will present three. Usually I will present some selection of actions because there is a lot of actions in SME strategy and I think my time is limited and I cannot go through all of them. So first one which I would like to mention is Enterprise Europe Network, which will create and provide sustainability advisors to guide SMEs on their ways to be more sustainable. Then regarding digitalization and some guidance of, let's say, SMEs, how to explore, let's say, possibilities which digitalization offers, there will be 240 regional hubs. So in almost every region, so to be rather very close to SMEs at the local level to advise SME on digitalization. As we spoke about skills, let's say my previous predecessors, like we can put here like skills, impact on skills, which was mentioned in the skills agenda, is really, let's say, focusing on this aspect of digital innovation. And then it's a creation of European Innovation Council. It's a pilot project which already started. There is 300 million euros for this year. And let's say there are planned some sustainable funding as of the next financial framework starting next year. And this European Innovation Council will focus on funding various let's say innovation projects, advice providing, or let's say providing networking. Next slide, please. Here we focus on, let's say, access of SMEs to the market and let's say cutting the red tape. we see that there is a lot of administrative challenges for SMEs. If we have some examples that those challenges, administrative challenges, can be rather financially burdensome for SMEs. So definitely the Commission would like to address it. Please, the next slide. Here we are speaking about several key actions like late payment, like 40% of payments within the EU are late. There's some statistics that if payment wouldn't be late, like 1/4 of bankruptcies wouldn't happen. So it's a rather important topic. So our colleagues looking at the late payment directive implementation will try to make some effort together with other stakeholders and member states to better implement the late payment directive. Then a single digital gateway should provide one-stop shop, national one-stop shop for information for SMEs to, let's say, give them some certain guidance how specifically to access single market across, so to provide the products and services cross-border. And then EU Startup Notion Startup, let's say it's a new initiative which is very much based on member states' involvement. So they should provide to SMEs some good practice example to help them to start up and scale up, let's say, their activities. There will be, let's say, created one-stop shops to inform them. Also, let's say, they will help them to expand. They will help them to find some new talents and to keep those talents. So therefore, I mentioned that my somehow provide with some stocks of the company to motivate them to stay, or to, let's say, to help with visa for some young talents for abroad. So various activities. In this case, I would like also to say that together with SME strategy, was published, let's say, a communication of the Commission about the obstacles to access a single market, and also communication on action plan how to overcome such obstacles, how to improve access to the single market. Let's see, both were published in March. Next slide, please. The next pillar is about access to finance. Usually SMEs, because they are small, they have problem to access finance either, let's say, via banks. They have difficulties to access the capital market, and definitely they have problems to attract venture capital. Especially we see here that venture capital in Europe investments are much lower than those in the United States. Next slide, please. Key actions here are focusing on some diversity of access of SMEs to the funding, either, let's say, facilitating their access to the stock market via SME Initial Public Offering Fund, which will be launched next year, or, let's say, helping some enterprises to scale up, which is this Escalar initiative, which was launched in April via European Investment Fund, which aim is, let's say, to boost the size venture capital funds, so to attract private funding to help SMEs to grow. And last not least, often we see some obstacles for female, let's say, to be more active in entrepreneurship. So Commission introduced some gender smart finance initiative to help female-led companies to grow, to get funding. Next slide, please. Here I would like to inform you, let's say, about some strengthening role of EU SMEs envoy. According to my information, it has not been appointed yet. My commissioner, Mr. Breton, will appoint her or him, I assume, soon. But the main role is to cooperate with national envoys and to look at EU initiatives, whether they have some SME component and whether they don't let's say, present some additional burden for SMEs. So they should, he or she should scrutinize, let's say, incoming EU legislation for whether it's fit for purpose for SMEs, and let's say also try to reduce the burden on SMEs, like within the principle that one legislation, for every legislation introduced, one should be abolished. Next slide, please. As I said, I'm dealing with the construction sector, and we are running construction sector observatory, which some of you might be aware about. I just would like to draw your attention that this year we published 2 important reports about the construction sector. One is about skills, so improving the human capital basis. And second one is about delay payment in construction sector. Let's say we also make some advertising, also our associations did, so some of you might be aware. We are also, the observatories, creating, or let's say elaborating every year, updating every year, fact sheets about every country. There is a lot of information about SMEs in particular country regarding construction sector, how they stand, what is their access to funding, what is the delay payment problematic, what is their activity regarding skills development, also about vocational education and training. There is a lot of interesting information about SMEs, I assume. So I would like to encourage you to have a look, if you have a time, at our construction sector observatory. Next slide, please. And this is the end of my presentation. Thank you very much for your attention. And if you would have some question even in the future, there's my email address, so you can contact me. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Roman. I invite everybody to have a look to the observatory, very, very useful, the European Sector Observatory on Construction. Before passing to the question and answer, I would like to mention what UNIEP and the partners are doing. EUROPA-MEISTER is one of the most important initiatives that we are carrying on. Roman knows about other projects, but in particular, I think it's important that you know that we are still working on qualification at all levels. So this is, we are talking about a master, so a level 6, but we are carrying on another project on level 5, and we are still working also at basic level 3 and 4. So what is happening in this case, we are trying to include other units, as you said, as you mentioned, on digitalization and also on circular economy. So to explain that we are following a bit, you know, the current situation and the current needs. So our qualification is still be updated with these important issues. We are also working on other projects for recognition of prior learning. Why? Because we are trying to attract young people, but also other qualified people. In this case, we are trying to work also for migrants and refugees. Third, we have presented a new project on building up a methodology for mobility. This is also important. So we will have a sort of Europass for the painting trade. So these are all, you know, tools to, I mean, to go towards our objective to attract people in our profession. Something that I would like also to underline is the importance of network between schools and enterprises. This remains always a gap to fill in. Without this connection, it will be really very, very difficult to you know, to adapt and to make known the qualifications on which we are working on. So thank you for you know, your help, for all the speakers, for the help you can give to us in making this gap filled in the reality. So now I will pass the floor for if there are some questions. I don't know. I don't see any questions here from the panel, but I would like to open this session if somebody has questions. No. So no, we don't have any questions. Do you have other contributions that you want to give from the panelists? No? Okay, so we approach now to the end of this session of the conference. Thanks to all participants and speakers for all these interesting contributions. And I invite you to join us for the second session, which will be at 2 p.m. In the afternoon. So thank you very much indeed for all valuable speeches and contribution. And I really look forward to continue working in an efficient way in the future. Thank you very much.
It was a pleasure. Okay.
Thank you. All the best.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.